the media will be allowed to watch an Eagles OTA practice. So
Grass time.
that is grass time, right around the corner. A little 7-on-7 in t-shirts and shorts.
Right, which is, of course, with the Philadelphia Eagles, non-mandatory. I'm guessing you expect a pretty high percentage attendance rate for the Birds. Have you heard any whispers as to guys who might just either be completely excused and or say, yeah, these workouts are not necessarily something I need?
No, in fact, I would expect high 90s. There's always something. Somebody, a veteran player, can get excused.
And good morning, Birds fans. It's a Throwdown Thursday here on Birds 365 with your Mac and Mac bros, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. Nice enough day. Got the dog out this morning. Yes, it is spring. Yes, football is right around the corner. Am I going to say that for the next 100 and change days before the Eagles kick off? Yeah, I guess
Right
so.
around the corner, baby. You know what is right around the corner, Jody? Legitimately,
What's that?
on-field OTAs. A week from tomorrow. Is tomorrow Friday? Yes, tomorrow's Friday. The media will be allowed to watch an Eagles OTA practice. So
Grass time.
That is grass time, right around the corner. A little 7-on-7 in t-shirts and shorts.
Right, which is, of course, with the Philadelphia Eagles, non-mandatory. I'm guessing you expect a pretty high percentage attendance rate for the Birds. Have you heard any whispers as to guys who might just either be completely excused and or say, yeah, these workouts are not necessarily something I need?
No, in fact, I would expect high 90s. There's always something. Somebody, a veteran player, can get excused. If they have something to do that, they're having a kid, for instance, somebody's going to say, yeah, don't worry about it. But one of the reasons the Eagles set up things the way they have is to make the players happy, and they negotiate essentially sort of a mini CBA with the players. Look, if we don't do this, this is important, build chemistry, team building, got to be in for OTAs, and everybody's agreed to it, and everything's kumbaya. So, yeah, I would expect, if not 100%, very close to it.
Yeah, everything is kumbaya until it's not, and
Yeah.
then things can go somewhere straight. Who negotiates that quasi team CBA that you just referenced? Is that Sirianni?
Yeah. Well, that's no, I don't think it is, and I've heard both sides of the
Well, hold
story.
on. If it's not Sirianni, then is it Howie?
Yeah,
Does
it's
he get in
Howie.
touch with each individual player's
No,
agent?
I wouldn't say it like that. I would say it's Howie tells Nick, this is the way we want to do it, and Nick agrees to it, and the players obviously have no problem with. The players are the least important because everything's good for them. They don't have mandatory work, but they do talk to the leadership committee, which is veteran players, Kelsey Graham players like that. And it's more about the veteran players. Let's be honest, the rookies and the young players, the still developing players, they could use as much work as possible. So, it is shifted and geared more towards veteran players. No question about that.
If you're not locked to make the team, you're showing up because there are so few instances where you get to show up and show off for what your capabilities are and how you can help the Philadelphia Eagles in this upcoming year. So I understand that. Anytime there's any activity, mandatory or not, if you're an undrafted free agent or a first or second year player who wasn't a high draft pick, you're showing up. We know that. But it is all about the free agent, the veteran guys who have time in around the league. On every given year, the veteran committee, as you just called it, should change because you've got different guys. Do they have a meeting at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year? How is that committee, if you were selected to be on that veteran committee, are you on it till your days are numbered as a Philadelphia Eagle? How does that work? Who's on the veteran committee?
Yeah, that's up to the head coach, and like last year, Rodney was a big part of it, and he was probably, everybody kind of knew that if it wasn't, there was a likelihood it was going to be his last year in Philadelphia. So um, I don't think anything has to do with more of players and their status. It's more of, as the head coach, you can get a feel for who the younger players listen to and follow. And so that's pretty much a head coach decision. And it becomes pretty obvious. When Malcolm Jenkins was here, obviously he was on the leadership committee. Rodney was on it, Jason, Brandon, people like that. It becomes pretty obvious. There are certain guys that people gravitate towards, and the quarterback's likely going to be a part of that as well, obviously.
For this team, it truly is, because he is certainly a leader, even though he's not as veteran as some of the other guys. They do not list it on the website as to who is on the leadership committee. Do you have a pretty good guess as to how deep that committee is right now and who would be on it?
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned a couple names. Jason would certainly be on it. Brandon would certainly be on it. I think if you're looking for uh, out of the box, maybe Anthony Harris is a veteran guy that people like and listen to. Um, but but no, it's not any official. It's usually 5 or 6 guys, and it's very informal. It's very
You
informal.
mean they don't have
No, they don't
organized
have.
meetings,
No, there's no
lunches?
there's no sash or anything. There's no membership card, and these things tend to, um, things go bad. For instance, all of a sudden it becomes a bigger deal, and then you might see a veteran player call a team meeting, away from the coaches, and it becomes more of an important thing. But yeah, I wouldn't get caught up in it if is what I'm trying to say. It's not that big of a deal, but there's certain coaches try to stay out of the locker room. They don't go in the locker room for the most part. Um, when we were allowed in the locker room, and hopefully, um, I tell this story all the time. Hopefully, we'll be allowed back in at some point. Certain teams have already let reporters back in. Um, Never saw a coach in the locker room, uh, with the exception of Corey Unlin. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Why is Corey in the locker room?" And every once in a while, you'd see him walking back to the players' lounge area. And I said, "Well, and I looked into it because I said that might be a story. Is Corey a liaison sort of to the locker room?" No, he was just going to get a haircut every week. That's it. So they tried.
He's got his hair cut in the locker room, did
Yeah.
it, Coach Unlin?
Well, back in the players' lounge, which is just off the locker. So you have to walk through the locker room to get to the players' lounge. And that team barber would be back there. But so, big story idea down the drain. But
wait, you couldn't spin a haircut into a story,
well,
McMullen? What's wrong with you?
I guess you could have, but I thought it was a bigger deal than it was, because coaches generally don't go in the locker room. I mean, that's the player's sanctuary. And because of that, they want to have certain players, and they want to keep, things copacetic. And there's certain players they trust. And that's where the leadership aspect comes into it.
So pre, during, post game, coaches are in the locker, and then that's it. Sunday, that's the only time they're ever in the locker room. Tuesday through Saturday, either the players, if they got to talk to the coach, they got to go to his office, or vice versa.
Well, they have a crap load of meetings. I mean, first thing in the morning, you have positional meetings. You're in the room with your positional coach. You have offensive meetings, defensive meetings, meetings with the head coach, special teams meetings. Plenty of time. But yeah, that's why I said it's the locker room is sort of their sanctuary to get away from all the coaches and all that kind of thing. So even, because of the um because of the nature of game day, obviously you have the head coach talking to the team and, firing them up. You see the videos, pregame, postgame. But even that, they tend to exit pretty quickly. It's not like they're spending a whole lot of time around the players. They want them focused, they want them relaxed, and things like that. So yeah, the locker room is generally uh, off limits, and it should be.
All right, let's stay behind the scenes. This broke yesterday, right at the tail end. Hey, at least we got it in. Better than the Eagles always making their announcements on player moves at 10:15 after we get off the air by about 15 minutes. Yesterday, you mentioned that there were some reports out there that the Eagles could actually be adding to their front office staff as compared to what's happened since the season ended with several subtractions from the Eagles front office staff, that John Ferrara could be getting a higher position with the Philadelphia Eagles, has been part of the team since 2016. I recognize the name. I don't think I could recognize the face, kind of like you and Mac McCain couldn't pick him out of a lineup. But give me what you know about John Ferrara, if he is going to be getting a new appointment in the Eagles hierarchy.
He's the Eagles compliance guy. Nick Sirianni brings him. That's probably where you heard his name. Brings him up every once in a while. There's a lot of guys. Alec Hallaby, analytics. John Ferrari is compliance officer, already a vice president. So to me, it's about more of, I think he gets along with Howie, and they're going in that direction. We'll see what the title is, and we'll see what the responsibility is. If my guess with John would be more of a, it's not going to be a personnel role. It's going to be more of an all-encompassing Catherine, excuse me, Catherine Race or Andrew Berry like role, and we'll see what the title is. But um, not much. I mean, if you're asking me how much I know about John Ferrari, I know the Eagles are sort of ahead of the game. We talked about this with Brad Spielberger earlier in the week. They tend to be ahead of the game, whether it's contracts and Jake Rosenberg or analytics and Alec Hallaby or compliance and John Ferrari. They tend to be ahead of the rest of the league when it comes to, as they would describe it, winning outside the margins. So, you know, Bill Belichick would probably be the best example of somebody who's got a, and I'm going to date myself, but you'll get this reference, Jody, a Billy Martin like, you know, expertise in the rule book that other people just don't think about. And they have to close loopholes. We talked about closing loopholes with contracts with Brad. Um, I always go back to that famous New England Baltimore game where John Harbaugh was going nuts on the sidelines because Belichick was lining his tight end in line like he was a guard or something, and the guard and tackle were outside, and he was like, "This can't be legal." Oh, it was legal at the time, and Patriots got a whole bunch of first downs, and Harbaugh was losing his mind and not knowing what was going on, and the league had to close the loophole the next off season. Rarely do you see something to that degree. And it usually comes from the Patriots. But the Eagles tend to be ahead of the rules. It might be roster rules. It might be, um, um, you know, yesterday the news broke that the practice squad is going to remain at 16 players. So that's a rule they liked coming from COVID. So they're going to keep that. They tend to be ahead of the game when it comes to all these arcane little things, and that's sort of John Ferrari's job.
You get your advantages wherever you can get your advantages, and if Ferrari has been a guy who's been assisting along those things, and the Eagles have benefited from it, then good for him if he's going to get a promotion out of the deal. How about Brandon Hunt? We've been talking about him, it seems like, for close to a month. Steeler exec, was in the mix for the general manager's job, and little did we know the assistant general manager's job in Pittsburgh. Didn't even know that job was going to exist. But now Andy Weidel has it. Hunt has been in the conversation in Pittsburgh, didn't get either two gigs. Now he's falling in line behind two new guys who, when you get a job with Pittsburgh, you can basically chalk up a decade because they really do fall in line with continuity and give their guys long chances to prove themselves. So him moving on would be something that would only make a lot of sense. I know he talked to a couple other organizations during this offseason. You told us a couple times on the show over the last month that the Eagles, when they come out with their quote-unquote new staff, any changes, they like to do it in one fell swoop with one big announcement. But you got to get the guy, if he's coming in from outside the organization, you got to get him hired to begin with. When are we going to hear something, yay or nay, on Brandon Hunt?
I think it's going to happen relatively soon, and I think there's a better chance than maybe people don't understand, from the perspective that, as you mentioned, the Steelers are known for their continuity. So it wasn't a surprise to me when they picked Omar Khan to be the GM, who's basically, he's already been there for 20 years, a little bit over 20 years in Pittsburgh. Now he's what we didn't know was going to happen is they were going to sort of split the job because he's more of a business guy, contract guy. Started out as their football administration guy, and then he was vice president of football and business administration before he got the promotion to GM. So they're kind of splitting the job almost between that business end and the scouting staff, and that's where Andy Weidel fits in, leading the scouting staff. But this is Pittsburgh, as you mentioned, and people looked at Andy Weidel and said, "Well, he's a Pittsburgh guy. His first job was with Pittsburgh, but he's not been in the building for." Brandon Hunt was in the building, and that was the issue. You know, if you've been in the building with this team known for continuity and they pass you over for somebody outside the building, that's going to make you more apt to leave. So I think it's I'm not going to say it's likely, but I think the Eagles have a good chance, and that's who they've targeted, because the other guy was Morocco Brown, and for whatever reason, that went off the rails. So I would be surprised at this point if Brandon Hunt wasn't here in a high profile role.
We'll see when, or well, first is if, but if John and I are right that it's pretty damn close to a foregone conclusion, then it becomes when an announcement like that could be happening. All right, I've got an announcement for all our loyal streamers here on Birds 365. We're going to make it a threesome next. Our buddy Game Day Kratz.
You don't want to say that, Jody. There's some dirty-minded people out there.
What do you mean? Like on the stream that we get these advertisements daily for other potential viewing that our streamers may or may not enjoy? Yeah. Do you even understand that stuff, that when it pops up on the stream?
People go down a dark path. I try to stay away. I'm in the private chat, Jody. I'm trying to focus.
All right. God bless you. I get distracted easily. We will be distracted by Ed Game Day Kratz next here on Birds 365.